Well, hey guys, hi, it is Brent Abel here with Gold Ball Hunting. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube in the video, I got my partner Jeff Jacklich here, along with my good friend, fellow Berkeley Tennis Club member, the great Joel Drucker. JD, man, thanks for hanging out with us today. Really, really appreciate it.
A pleasure. Always fun to talk with you guys about tennis and life and anything else.
Well, listen, cool. So, if you know, for those of you guys who do not know Joel, as I said, a fellow member of the Berkeley Tennis, a crafty, nasty 4-5 lefty that has God, it's painful. Just thinking about what he can do out there is painful. But author of a couple books, Jimmy Connor Saved My Life, and then Don't Bet on It, your recent book. So. And also a prolific writer. I would say, I've always said, JD, you're a 7-0 writer, mostly in tennis. You know, do you end up doing a lot of work with the Tennis Channel? I know you started with the Tennis Channel, right when they got started as well?
I was with Tennis Channel before they started. I knew the founder, Steve Bellamy, and worked with the group while they were building it, and then started, a long time. Very nice organization.
Yeah, no, I mean, just it's been a real treat for all of us tennis players to be able to have the Tennis Channel, and I know that you're still heavily involved in terms of writing stories and editing that kind of stuff for the slams, for the Tennis Channel. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, a great group of people to work with. Ken Solomon, who's been the CEO for a while, has a really tremendous guy and a really good team and a lot of passion around tennis and lots of new approaches. Yeah, I really enjoy working with Tennis Channel. Really good organization. And
then also anointed as I guess an historian at the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport. That is cool. So what is that? I mean, what do you do for them, or how does that work?
The Hall of Fame, I write a great many pieces for them. I do things earlier this year in Australia. I did some interviews with some players there. They want to have things preserved. They want to have these icons known and have some of the stuff on tape. So I did hour-long interviews with Roy Emerson and Ken Rosewall, Patrick Rafter, as well as some incoming inductees. I did a long interview with Lee Na, and these interviews are about an hour long, and sometimes they can just be held as interviews, as well as you slice and dice them into sound bites. I mean, you may have seen on Facebook lately some pieces that the Hall of Fame has done honoring players, like a few little vignettes from Lee Na about memories of her career. That was based on an interview that I conducted. Also, a big part of conducting these interviews is doing enough research and preparing all the kinds of questions to go over some of the touchstone moments in their career. I also write profiles of the inductees. So there's a lot of stuff that involves knowing the history of the game, even things like the whole arc of a player's career. You know, the ups, the downs, the great wins, the great losses.
That's great. That's cool. Well, good. Well, congratulations. I love your work. You do some good stuff for sure. And, you know, you've got a big presence on Facebook as well as Twitter. And this morning you put out a Facebook post titled, "What Will Tennis Look Like in 2030?" And I thought that was pretty interesting. And you know, it's not, I mean, we're almost, a little bit 10 plus years away from 2030. So what are you thinking? I mean, and the reason I'm asking this, JD, is I didn't read all of the comments on that post, but the thing I want to ask is, if you see some changes coming down the road, what should we be practicing right now to get ready for those changes?
Oh, I was looking a lot at the pro game. I think for us, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be overheads. It's going to be service returns. It's going to be a lot of stuff that you guys talk about are the basics of being a quality civilian, non-recreational tennis player. I mean, I think probably as people get older, things like fitness and strength and health are going to be important because bodies break down. And you guys have put a lot of energy into talking about how you maintain flexibility and diet and things like that. I think that's going to matter for the recreational player. That stuff. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think among us, it's going to be interesting to see how people who grew up with backhands and Western grips, how they age, how they start playing when they're past 50, 60, even 70 years old.
Well, I mean, when you look at I totally agree. I mean, Jeffrey, I would assume that you kind of think along the same lines as I do on this, but I think guys and gals who played college ball, maybe even some tour stuff, who want to start playing some senior stuff, or even just recreationally, they're going to have to transition at some point to get away from a full Western forehand grip and make some adjustments.
I would totally agree. I think it becomes range of motion, joints, impingements, anything, any and all of those possibilities, create kind of a stumbling block to be able to do what we did. I mean, I would love to be able to do what I did when I was 24 years old. I mean, who wouldn't, right?
That's right.
So I've made adjustments along the way, and we've talked about this, and I think, looking into the future, I think anybody who's going to stay in the game their lifetime, I think, should really kind of get used to the fact that you're going to have to hybridize your strokes along the way a little bit to accommodate some of the aches and pains and unforeseen truths of aging.
Well, and what about the fact that, I mean, the data now says that as we age up, players play more and more doubles. In 2030, I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. Maybe it'll start trending more back towards singles. But if the fact is that we've got to start, the big-time Western forehand grip guys are not going to be able to sit back, and if they're doubles players now, I don't think, and grip and rip from back there and really enjoy the game of doubles. I think they're going to have to sort of transform their games into something that's more of a an all-court doubles style. I've always thought it's like there's an opportunity for teaching pros to help these guys go from kind of this limited skill set,
right,
to really helping them expand. So, JD, any other interesting responses to your post this morning on Facebook about that?
Well, there'll be things of the pros there, and I think this will be true. There might be just an umpire in a court. Maybe there won't need to be linesmen. Maybe Hawkeye will cover every line. Maybe I think the pros are going to get bigger and bigger. It's funny. Earlier this year, I saw a match where 6'11" Riley Opelka played 6'5", or maybe 6'6", Juan Martín Del Potro. And Del Potro won, and so I put Del Potro defeats Opelka. Score one for the little guy.
That's right. Well,
the scrappy little 6'6" guy.
That's right.
And, but the game, I think at that level, why not? Why not see bigger and more skill? I mean, that's always been the trend in sports towards bigger people, bigger athletes, the lots of physicality, lots of fitness, things that allow us to stay in the game. But in a way, your point, Brent, about the Western grip guy and his opportunity with the teaching pro, what I want to say is, where were those teaching pros when this guy was 14?
Yeah.
Where were those teaching pros when this guy was 14? Why weren't they teaching him how to even feed a lob, or where to stand when he practiced his volley, and all these kind of things? And I think your point is great, that someone who grew up in the 80s and 90s learning to play a version of a Borg Agassi game, it'll be interesting to see how they evolve. And this gets to some of the rants I posted the other day on Facebook about the potential poison of league tennis. The narrowization of people who play, okay, I'm a 3-9. I'm a 3-9, and I win a lot of, 3-5, or I guess it would be 4-0 doubles matches, standing back and cracking ground strokes. And I'll just be happy doing that. I'll just win 80, 90% of my matches. I get bumped up. Well, I think people, obviously, who've learned one way of playing, they've played a lot from the baseline. They've played a lot of Western grips. It'll be interesting as they continue to age, how well they're able to play that game, and how in league play, which emphasizes doubles, how that adapts. A lot of people play that way in doubles. They don't play doubles the way we learned to play doubles, where you serve and volley on every point and you're using Eastern and continental grips. They blast ground strokes. Will that work as they get older? Maybe it will. What I find frustrating is to see people who do that at certain levels, and they're not really moving. They're just serving, staying back, whacking forehands. They're not even playing doubles. They're barely exercising.
Yeah. Talk about the minor rant you had recently on Facebook about league play.
I think league play, in a certain way, retards improvement. League play is about teams winning. And when the team wants to win, it needs to do the things that have helped you win. And if that means you only play the ad court, or you serve with a forehand grip, you're going to keep doing those things because that's what the team needs to do. And that's a little unfortunate. I think in its own odd way, that can even trigger a form of burnout on the part of the player. It's like, wow, I'm not really building more skills. I'm winning matches. I'm winning a lot of 3-5 or 4-0 or 4-5 or whatever level matches, but I'm not doing things that help me get better. as a player because the team doesn't need me to do that. The team doesn't want me to return in the court. I return them less. The team doesn't want me to fake poach. All these things that constrict the tennis experience, to broaden it. And so a league tennis is set up to reward a 3-9 more than a 4-1. An advanced 3-5 who wins a lot of matches, gets W's for the team, and then, now 4-0. I won't get many minutes. And so now suddenly tennis becomes like basketball. And the team captain is like the basketball coach deciding who gets to play in the game. And the whole point of tennis is that that's not what tennis is about. Tennis is about you going out there and playing. If I want to serve and volley every point in a tournament, I'll do that. It's on me. But now I got this league thing. Very constrictive.
Well, I think the other thing is what you said there, Joel, is also the team doesn't want me to improve because I'm winning at this level, and they don't want me to become a 4-0. Oh my gosh, blah blah blah. So now you've got this odd constraint that you have this desire, you want to get better, but now you feel this obligation to.
The team wants you to do things that don't have. The team doesn't want you to invest in getting. The team doesn't want you to invest in research and development. The team wants you to invest in generating short-term revenue, and short-term revenue is winning today's match. And if that means you only have an underspin backhand, and you may want to have a topspin backhand, sorry.
Right.
We don't want it.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think, to kind of get back to the post you had this morning about, what's going to look like in the year 2030, one of the first things you said is, we will have some kind of inexpensive technology that will help us call the lines correctly. I'm not talking about the pros. I'm talking about for the rest of us. And to me, that is going to be such a difference maker. I mean, some guy could be making the correct calls all the time, but you're either getting questioned or you're questioning because your eyes are not great. And even though you missed your shot by an inch, the ball was out, the guy called it out. There's this stuff going on mentally that I think that if we can inexpensively solve that problem, I think that's going to be a major change. Now, I'm hoping by 2030, I'll be in the 82s by then. Great.
You'll need a question of the gap between the erosion of the eyesight and the lesser speed of the ball. How those kind of who's vying with each other to go which way,
That's right.
But that'll be interesting. Those kind of personal electronic line calling things. Again, I think that's more of a pro thing. But I don't know. I think the constants will remain the same. I think for us recreational players about footwork and fundamentals. But doubles is the key thing of recreational tennis. It's league play. It's tournaments. Doubles is a big thing for a lot of people. The emotional aspect is so much less. Singles is very emotionally draining.
Yeah,
people.
That's true. That's true.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I want to ask you about another Facebook post that you tagged me in, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, about how I've got this thing where between points, first thing I do is go to the hook to a song. I'm kind of I'm a Van Morrison guy. And you came back, JD, and you mentioned that you're a different Morrison. You're a Jim Morrison guy. And I think the album that you put up there was No One Gets Out of Here Alive. And that for you was kind of your style of play. So as a non-touring pro, as a 4-5 player, what does that mean? In your own mind, personally, no one gets out of here alive.
Okay, my motto is when I play, and I don't cheat. I don't do gamesmanship. You play me enough, Brent, to know you don't do that. It has to do with what you do with the ball. It has to do with how do we apply pressure? How do we apply pressure on the opponent? And the subset is the term disruptive, but it's funny. And again, I mix up a lot of speeds and paces, and I come to net and I vary things. But disruptive tennis to me is the game. Martina Navratilova told me this great thing when she said, it's all disruptive. Consistency is disruptive at one level. Coming to net is disruptive. Power is disruptive. How do we apply pressure to break up someone's game? And this goes back to the gentleman you work with, Brent, with Tom Stowe. He talked about that. How do you break up someone's game? And you can do it. You have a lot of things to do. And one, of course, is to break up their attack. And the other thing is to broaden your own line of attack. So, for example, when you're young and just learning to play, I can break your game. I'm going to come to net against you. Well, you're going to break me up by lobbing me. Well, I got to learn one of those overheads. And so it's all about the skill building that we learn of how do we do it. And so for me, my approach as a player is winning is a desired outcome. You can't control it. But competing is a process you can control. How you pay attention on every point, how you try something different, how you really pay attention to what's going on, Pancho Segura talked a lot about the score, how you intelligently play a 15-30 point different than a 40 love point. And so to me, I like to think like a friend of mine said, they said, God, even to beat you is annoying because I like to create a lot of pressure. Like a friend and I were going out to play once, and he said, oh, let's go out there, let's play a couple of sets, get a good rhythm going, hit some balls. I go, rhythm? You want rhythm? He goes, what do you want?
No, I don't think you understand this because no one gets out of here alive.
That's right. I want chaos. I want chaos. And we should all want that forms of the opponent to feel the pressure. I mean, one pressure is if you play someone who hits the ball, 2 inches inside the baseline, and they do it once, whatever, they do it twice, that's interesting. If you play someone who hits the ball 3 or 4 times within 3 inches of your baseline, who's offense and who's defense? Yeah. They're not just steady. They're applying pressure. Yeah. They're hitting you back. Right. So how do you, and you know that, Brent, with the way your game continues to grow and evolve. When we first started playing 20, 25 years ago, you at heart had very much become a tremendous serve volleyer, always moving forward, and you still do that tremendously well. But now you've dimensionalized, you've added more height to your forehand, hit a heck of a lot of drop shot returns, all these ways that create doubt in the opponent, disruption, and that becomes a thing like, whoa, you play this guy, whether it's you or me or many of the other people you and I know, it's like, this is not going to be easy. No freebies.
Yeah. No, that's good.
No free ride. That's right. I think I get that. The idea that it's disruptive and knowing we've talked about this in other episodes is Joel, your skill set. You know your strengths, your weaknesses, and then you also make a point of when you go out there to play, you also, do your due diligence and kind of have an idea of what to poke at your opponent using your toolbox, not using Brent's toolbox, not using my toolbox, but your toolbox, right? And so this is something we talk about a lot too. And I think what you just said is really is poignant to that, is that not enough players, really understand their own skill set, their own toolbox, and then and that just lays out then how can I understand, how do I know how to attack my opponent? How do I know how to disrupt them if I don't know their weaknesses, if I don't know their strengths? If the two things have to somehow, come together in that process. And if I'm lacking information in either one of those, I'm going to have a tough day.
It's a relationship game. It's a relationship game. That's why I think a lot of people don't always understand that. It's not just, oh, how do I hit my shot better? It's like, well, wow, that shot of mine might actually groove one of yours. But it's a whole process. It's a long match. The match is an epic saga. So you learn these things. It's like, I know I'm left-handed, so every lefty, likes to serve wide in the ad court, but you learn against certain players. Hey, wait a second. Against this person, they like that return. So maybe that one's got to be taken off the table. But then that compels, in the wake of the match, skill building. Oh, I need to learn a better serve down the middle in the ad court. I need to learn that more instead of just relying on the same one. So then that's where lessons and skill building and practice. And so maybe what I ought to do is, okay, now when I play a practice singles match with someone, I'm going to serve a lot less wide in the ad court because I'm going to build that skill, etc. And that's where to get back to this league tennis thing, I think the pervasiveness of league tennis, of people getting ready every 5 days to play a league match, keeps them from building that stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Without a doubt, yeah.
JD, I know that you love to practice, you love to drill, and all that stuff. And what is the one thing right now, would you say, that not that you're avoiding, but what's the one thing you're not practicing that if you did, it would really make a difference in your game?
I think if I could do some more stuff away from the court on the agility movement front. Last year we have a trainer at our club, Brent, a woman named Jo who knows a bit about tennis and knows a lot about movement and things. And I paid her to watch me play tennis so she could see what I did. And there's probably I'd say if I put in an extra 60 to an hour or two a week of some off-court movement agility stuff, that would probably aid more of the tennis stuff. I think that's the thing I'm not doing. Boy, good question.
So, and it's a standard question that I ask, or that Jeff and I ask our students, and they say something, and then the next question I ask is, well, what's holding you back from doing it? And I know that you travel a lot. I know you all that stuff, and I know that when you're at the Grand Slams, that your time is wall to wall, working and a few hours of sleep here and there. So that's not an opportunity for you there. But in terms of when you're back in the Bay Area, what would be holding you back for those 1 or 2 hours a week to be able to do that off-court training?
That's just a question of organizing desire and time, because it's something that's harder, and the harder things that's why they're harder, because they're more difficult, because they take more time. You just say, okay, I'm going to set my mind, I'm going to do this. There's no thing. It's just desire and allocation.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, it's a rainy day, I'm going to do this instead of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to play this one day. No, I'm not going to play. No, this guy wants to play. I'm not going to play that day. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to be checking in on you, because I'll be around this summer.
I know you will.
So, and in fact, we could do, if you want to do some stuff, some agility stuff, I love to do that stuff as well. So, Jeff, unless you've got a question, I got something else I want to ask Joel about the tour. JD, you've got a proximity to the men's and women tour that hardly anyone else has, with your ability to work with Tennis Channel and all the other things you do. So what is it that because of that proximity, because of that closeness to both tours, what is it that you've discovered either about the tour or about the players that the rest of us who don't have your proximity, is there anything that you've seen about them that we watch Tennis Channel all the time and we listen to the announcers, but there's got to be something that you see that the rest of us don't have an opportunity to see? That's a
wonderful question. And I realized this a few years ago, because the fun times I have at tournaments is when I get to watch them practice. And I usually arrive at Wimbledon a couple of days early, and I get to see in practice, and seeing people in practice on grass is kind of mesmerizing, because grass is such a different surface, and you don't hear it, you see it, and there's Wimbledon and all the whites. I think that we recreational people spend way too much time fetishizing stroke technique,
mm-hmm.
and watch how he prepares, and watch his fingers, and watch this, and and see how it contacts in his wrist, and he's out here, and look how in front, and look, and you see people who love the fact that Federer, how he looks down at the ball, he spends that extra 1 or 2 seconds looking at the contact point, so people mimic that, and people buy his racket. I mean, no one more in tennis history has been more fetishized than Roger Federer. And what they don't pay attention to is the focus that these people bring. I want to say to people, hey, instead of just watching his swing shape and his swing pattern, why don't you tie your shoelaces well? Like John Wooden spent a lot of time with his UCLA team talking about, why don't you tie your shoelaces? Why don't you think about what you really want to do in a practice session, rather than just going out and chatting with the guy you're hitting with, chatting on change of your practice. What I see with the pros, and this everybody can imitate instantly, is a really neat focus. I was almost tempted to say tremendous, but that's going to sound efforted. Like you have to really focus hard, instead of just, why don't you go out there with your buddy and say, okay, let's have an agenda for our workout session. Let's do this. We're going to hit for 10 minutes, and then we're going to do this drill. And I see with the pros, when I watch them practice, there's a real purposefulness. They're not in a hurry. But there's a certain sense of discipline that recreational players don't bring to it. The pros, for example, hey, let's practice with 6 balls. We got a lot more more balls with 6 balls than 3 balls. How about that? I mean, how about instead of 3 balls where you're having to spend every 3 minutes picking them up, let's have 6 balls, and then we can get a lot more done in an hour. And how about when we take volleys, instead of hitting 1 volley and running back to the baseline, we stand at the service line and hit like 20 volleys, and volley, and I'm going to give you, there's a certain spirit of focus in the practices that I think is overlooked by recreational players. And that's something I always notice when I watch pros. I think, wow, these guys they're doing what we can do. I talked to Paul Anacone once about Federer working in Dubai. There's a whole mystery. What does Roger do when he goes to Dubai? He spends his time there, and it's really hot, and he works. And Paul told me he does nothing that anyone else can't do. Now, granted, Roger does it better. When someone says, "Hey, why don't you hit the topspin backhand inside out?" He can replicate it. But the drills are the same ones, the same kinds of things that we can do, that you and I can do, and we can have. So, okay, you're gonna feed me 20 lobs. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's no question that they're working on every shot, and Jeff and I talked about the other day. Jeff brought it up where there was a video of Roger practicing, and he was hitting these drop shots, and someone said, "Oh man, I think what was the thing, Jeff, that someone said, oh, he's just screwing around with a dropper," and I'm going, I don't think he is. I think he's actually kind of trying to feel the dropper. And
it's like Steph Curry. It's like the whole pregame ritual Steph Curry does. And these guys are playing tennis, and they're playing, and they're enjoying it, and they're giving themselves the full palette of things. But they're also rehearsing for scenarios. Martina Navratilova told me a great thing. She would, for every time she played a match, she would make sure she got fed 5-10 high defensive lob bounce overheads, so she could run that play and be ready to hit one. Because she said, you may or may not, but next thing you know, it's going to be 4-all in the third set. And sure enough, you're going to come to net, and the opponent's going to be smart enough to throw up a lob that's a skyscraper lob. And it's like, I'm glad I practice it, and people. And so I think the thing is a broadening of the practice, and also a certain focus to the practice. That I think that's the thing that we all can learn the most from is, and not their swing shapes, and not their this on the volley, and not their this on the backhand, but really about just the focus.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I remember.
Hey guys, I'm gonna jump in here really quick. I have to take care of something. I'm in the middle of things going on here, so I apologize, but I've got to take this.
Okay.
I may be back. I may not.
Okay. So JD, one of the things that when I worked with Mr. Stowe, and it was one of his pet peeves, is we would either be warming up or practicing and doing what you just kind of described, and if we missed a shot, one of the guys would go, "Hey man, I'm sorry, sorry," and Stowe would look at us and go, "Sorry? What are you doing? I mean, like when we were warming up, you should be missing some shots. You're warming up. Stop apologizing." So Jeff, what I was just saying to Joel was when I worked with Mr. Stowe, how he would, we'd be warming up or we'd be working a drill, and someone would miss a shot, and someone would go, "God, I'm sorry, hey, sorry," and Mr. Stowe would go, "Shut up. You're just stop it. You're warming up. You should be missing some balls, right? You're practicing. You're in a drill. Just like Joel said, someone just fed you the high lob and you bounced it and you missed it, or someone was trying to feed you the lob and it was short or deep, or whatever, and you missed it. And you say, "I'm sorry." He goes, "Stop it. Don't apologize anymore. Let's stay focused on it." Because when you start this apology thing, the next thing you know is it just kind of dumbs down the whole thing. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but that's. But I just
practice. Talking about practice. The practice is called practice. Like we're right. Working together, doing things, and again, I think for all the ways people want to study these players, there's way too much study on these little technical things that are more subtle than we want to think. But people think, oh, if I just do this, if I just keep my head down like Roger, or if I turn my hips like Pete Sampras and all that, that's so less important than how about some proper focus? How about instead of trying to volley, I'm not trying to volley like Roger Federer. I'm trying to volley like Joel Drucker. I'm trying to be the best volleyer I can be in what I've tried to learn to be, and I'm just going to do it that way. And I've got a teacher, and he's going to help me, and we're going to do work together, and I'm going to practice with my friends. I'm not going to do this kind of mimicry. I mean, I think mimicry to a degree is helpful, but another point, it's limited and it can get artificial.
Yeah, it's not really, at the end, it's not really, well, that's how you play the game. You're right. I mean, you've got to be able to make the Joel Drucker volley as consistent as possible, and then maybe you add a little something that would give you maybe a little more skid, a little more something, but until you get the Joel Drucker volley going all the time and build some confidence with it, you're right. Hey, here's something a little off topic from instruction. So yesterday at Rome, or in Rome, Kyrgios goes crazy, and he What's he get? He gets. I mean, he busts a racket. He throws a racket out there. He takes a chair and throws a chair out in the court and blah blah blah. He finally gets. I don't know if he quit or if he got defaulted. But I mean, this kid to me is on a collision course with either the ATP is going to have to do something, or I don't know. But and everyone says, "Oh my God, he's so good for the game of tennis," and I go, "Really?" This is. I mean, it's a little entertaining, but to me, it's just like I don't see any good for the tennis. I don't. I see like some negative stuff with.
Very watchable.
Kids watch this stuff and go, well, God, that's cool, man. I can be a complete jerk, and so what? So what do you think? I mean, and I know maybe it's tough on you being a writer and being that close that you don't want to say something or write something about Nick where he's going to come up to you at the French and go, oh God, Drucker, what the hell, mate?
He's not going to do that, but I think, look, the whole thing about whether someone's good, it's funny how in tennis navel-gazes at itself so much. Is this good for tennis? Is this bad for tennis? He's a very engaging player to watch play. I've watched him play a lot of tennis, and I enjoy watching him play tennis because he has a lot of skills and a lot of things. When he has a tantrum like that, yeah, that draws attention to tennis. Is that necessarily good for tennis? I don't know about that. It makes some people interested in tennis, but it doesn't necessarily mean people want to play tennis. I mean, sometimes people are turned off from tennis. A lot of mothers and fathers will think, God, I don't want my kid in a sport like that where people are throwing tantrums all the time. So I'm not gonna get myself into the whole policy implications of Nick Kyrgios and his temper tantrums. Himself, though, yeah, it's clear. Look, to me, I think deep beneath it, I think he really loves tennis. I think he wants to do well in tennis. He just doesn't always know how to get out of his way, and he has his self-esteem thing. It's really tough to understand these people. He did a long interview with Ben Rothenberg in the New York Times that I want, and Ben's podcast that I'm in the middle of listening to that I hope to learn more about him. But even what these people say, I've been around these people 35 years, and even what they say, it's just what they say. It's just what they say. Like someone said to me, Federer says he's doing X and Y. I said, yeah, he said that. They're just words. I mean, what really matters is, okay, let's watch them play week in, week out, year after year, and then we'll see. So, yeah, he had a meltdown. Yeah. He had a meltdown. So we'll see what his course is. I don't know. The ATP is not the league. That's the big problem in tennis. It's not the NBA where you can say to a player, hey, we're docking you. The players are not subject to – tennis doesn't work. It gets back to the thing I said earlier about tennis is not basketball. The tennis coach is not the basketball coach. He doesn't even have a coach.
So if he was a golfer doing this stuff, I don't think he'd be around.
Well, the PGA has a little different structure, sort of. He may, yeah. Well, he's not a golfer. He didn't become a golfer. Different culture, different sport. No?
Totally.
All right. It sounds politically correct to me, Joel. Just saying. That's fine. So, Jeff, you got any questions for Joel?
Yeah, the burning question we all want to know, Joel, is your favorite player of all time.
Oh, well, that's pretty easy.
That's so easy. That's
player is Jimmy Connors.
Oh, it should be, what's your second best player of all time?
What's my second player? That's a toss-up. Probably Ken Rosewall. My second player of all time is Ken Rosewall, and they actually have a lot in common. I like these guys who are versatile, who have great footwork. Both Connors and Rosewall are like that. Versatile all-court games, can do lots of things, certain engagements. I always, in the pro game, and I've come to admire Chris Evert a lot too, longevity is a really big thing for me. Players who do it year after year after year. I tend to like tortoises more than hair. Wait, which is the faster one? The tortoise. The tortoise is the slower one.
Yeah.
The tortoise wins.
Tortoise does win.
I tend to like the longer lasting ones more, and I to really. Rosewall is best understood by adults. When I was younger, I didn't quite understand his game as much. Just like Chris Evert. I mean, these people who can play that well for that long are really commendable to me.
Well,
Connors.
It's interesting to me, Joel, that Jimbo's 1 and Muscles is 2, where you've got. I mean, both guys have got fire in the belly, but both guys show it completely different. There's 180s, right? It's a total 180. How Jimbo shows it, and we know that Rosewall would never. Would never do the antics and the stuff that Jimbo did, right? So
that's true.
So you've got guys from polar opposites in that way, but what you're saying is that the footwork and the longevity And to me, I mean, I never thought of Jimbo as being stylish, right? I just thought of him being just a bulldog, just coming in and doing what he did. But I think of Kenny as being very, very stylish, very smooth.
More acoustic. Rose was more acoustic. It's a woodrock. If you look at it in musical terms, Connors was the Elvis. Connors was more electric and more physical and harder.
Right.
But he took a lot. But I'll tell you, you watch. What do you mean by stylish, like a certain elegance? But I think Connors, there's a certain precision. I mean, what I want to resurrect always with Connors, he wasn't just David Ferrer or Schwartzman or Leighton Hewitt. He was an Agassi Djokovic of his time. He wasn't just Pete Rose. He was Ted Williams. He wasn't just a lifetime 305 guy who scrapped his way and hit a lot of singles. This guy hit for a lot of extra bases for his time. Well into his 30s, no one hit the ball harder in tennis than Connors, but not just about pace, but about texture. And you watch points, you watch the way he assembled points, and you watch the way he built points and the way he used lots of parts of the courts, whether with a lob or coming to net or all that stuff, or even with, I mean, I know, that side spin forehand sometimes, and but I think there's a little more. I think if you watch closely, there's a little more style to Connors than you think of raw. You get past the vulgarity to the tennis.
Get past the vulgarity, yeah. Well, I if you're going to bring up baseball guys, I would compare him more to a Pete Rose.
See, but I think he's more closer to Ted Williams. I think Pete Rose was a scrappy guy who was like a lifetime 305. Connors was better than Pete Rose. Connors hit for more extra base. Connors was a bigger hitter than Pete Rose. Pete Rose is more like, strikes me as like a little Leighton Hewitt, fire plug kind of guy. Connors was you don't stay in the top 3 for 12 years batting 305. I know the Connors Pete Rose analogy is very obvious with the hairdo and the volatility and the head first sliding, but I think Connors was a better and a more significant part of tennis than Pete Rose was in baseball.
Rose was a 305 lifetime average?
Something like that. Yeah.
God, I mean, he had over 4,000 hits.
Right, a lot of.
Wow, that must have been a lot of at bats. All right. Well, listen. Anything else that we didn't ask you today that's on your mind? You just got to get off some fire in the belly you want to talk about, JD?
I think this stuff about how we practice and how we build our games. I think a really interesting thing to me in tennis is how people go about constructing a tennis a style and where it comes from, whether it's the type of courts you play on, whether it's the people you play, whether it's the people you watch, whether it's your temperament. And I think for instructors, and you guys are instructors, coaches, teachers, how that happens, how a player and an instructor, how that happens is really interesting to me. Some of it is cultural, some of it is temperamental. That really interests me, and how people continue to do that as they evolve is a really interesting thing. We started off this conversation talking about how is the 61-year-old guy who grew up playing like Borg going to evolve? And will he? And need he? Does he have to? I mean, you see guys, Brent, a little younger than you, who play a heck of a big power baseline game. Do they continue to evolve? It takes on a different shape? They're not going from semi-Western to continental. So they're going to go to something.
Right.
No, they're not going from semi to continental for sure. But I just do think, like, when you say, well, what are these guys going to be doing in 2030? I've always felt like if they don't adapt, like for me, I mean, I have completely adapted, right? From being pure serve and volley, first and second serve, 100% of the time, trying to get in behind every second serve, return to serve. If I got stuck, literally stuck on the baseline, I would perceive an incoming groundie a foot from the baseline. Well, there's an approach out opportunity. So I've had to evolve from that into primarily a baseline player. And you're right. I mean, I would never have drop shotted before because I wanted to be the guy up at net, right? I didn't want to bring someone in. So, but now and so it does get to who's got the guts and the time. And, when I worked with Stowe, man, I was a real fish out of water for a long time. Not that he was, I guess just because he was helping me make changes that took time. And there was a moment where I was just kind of just treading water, just going, I don't know if this is going to work. And so it's like one of those things where if you're going to, and to me, that's a pretty big, significant change. If you're going to be a big time semi to full Western baseliner, to eventually be able to adapt and do something different, which might mean that if nothing else, your body starts to say, dude, all you can do now is play doubles. And if that's it, then who's got the guts to do it? So
you gotta have let's get one of those guys. You gotta talk with one of those guys. Someone who's that age, who grew up playing that kind of way, and see how they've adapted their game. That'd be very interesting to talk to someone like that. How they go about playing doubles, how their singles has changed. Your stuff, Brent, I think it's been fairly seamless because I've watched you as your game has evolved and how you grow. You can still serve and volley. You're still at heart using an Eastern grip. You maybe slice the backhand a little more than you used to, but it's still this all-courtness based on the work you did with Tom Stowe. So it's not like you've suddenly gone to a 200 backhand and you got this Western forehand and you're cranking and you're standing 9 feet behind the baseline. So it's been a really seamless evolution.
Well, and what has been interesting is with Jeff's and my students where we're doing our coaching webinars, and part of it is we get students who will send us video of their matches or a set or half a dozen games, something like that. And to be able to customize something for them where you actually look at reality and you say, look, I know you want to be able to play this way, but unless that knee is back to 100%, which is never going to be, or unless this or that happens, you got to get real about what you can and can't do. And one of the things that Jeff mentioned, earlier on is that your toolbox, your skill set, and I think as we get older, you have to get real with what you can and can't do, and adapt your style of play to be able to maximize what you can do now as you get older, as you age up. So, there you have it.
I'm never going to have I'm a lefty. I have basically a slice kind of serve, and sometimes I can hit flat. But there's no way. I'm 58 years old. I'm not going to learn a kick serve. I'm not at this stage in my life going to have a serve where I toss it somewhat a little behind me and hit one that bounces high up to a righty's forehand. Probably not going to happen. So that's all right. It's okay. But can I make the other one somewhat better? And I've done that. Can I practice 40 serves a day for a couple of weeks and learn to hit targets better and hit the one down the middle in the ad court a little better? That you can do.
Yeah. Well, so what you just said is you're figuring out what you can and can't do. Well, I can't do this one thing, so why would I practice that one thing that I realistically can't do? I see the pros do it, and my teaching pro says, oh, well, you got to have that kicker, Joel, because you're a lefty. You got to be able to have it. So you spend hours and money and baskets of balls, and you don't get anywhere with it. So to me, it's like you're smart with this, going, here's something I'm never really going to be able to do, so why waste my time practicing it? And that's good. So, all right, guys. So listen, thanks for hanging out with us today. We'd love you to like us, share us. I don't care. This is Jeff's thing. What's the third thing? We want you to.
I can do it. I can do it. I'm back.
Are you back?
Yes.
What do we want fine folks to do right now, Jeff?
Like us, share us, please subscribe, and let us know what you think down below.
Outstanding. Guys, get out there today. Help someone else have a spectacular day. And Jeff, we'll do this again tomorrow.
I can't wait.